Cuando tú quieras me llamas, tú me llamas, soy el que te enamora, que te devora. Cuando tú quieras me llamas, tú me llamas, soy el que te enamora, el que te devora. Soy el que te roba un beso en una noche lloviendo, o terminamos haciendo el amor.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Food for Thought. Thoughts if it were you, and my name is Gentrics. Guys, what's up? What's up? What's up? We're still on the topic of contraception, and we only have a few more things left to cover. So let's go ahead and try to get through them as quick as possible and move on. All right? First things first. We're going to talk now. All that's left to cover are the birth control methods that have to be used every single time you plan to interceprecate. There's a word for you. Feel free to look it up, I guess. I hope I'm using it properly, but there's only one way to find out. But that's not what this episode's about. So, anytime you intend to have intercourse or even go about having sex, let's just say that, these items you have to know how to use, and you have to use them every single time. So today's topic will be the condom. Well, let's just keep it as blunt and as simple as possible. Okay? We'll get started on that in just a moment. It can be used by itself or combined with other birth control methods. That's the great thing about spermicide, so you don't need to worry about any issues. You can use it as a plus with condoms to give extra protection. Since the condoms basically protect against STDs, using them together works really well. Fun fact, the root word "side" in spermicide means to kill. And spermicide doesn't actually kill sperm, but it does slow it down so it can't reach the egg. That's the whole point of using, condoms. It comes in many different forms: creams, gels, films, foams, and suppositories, which are soft inserts that melt into a cream inside the vaginal area of a woman. There's lots of different spermicide brands and types out there, but they all work in a similar way, blocking the cervix from stopping sperm from moving. And the best kind of spermicide to use is the one you like the most. So keep that in mind. They're pretty effective. And like I mentioned, it's fairly simple to use. How do you get it? Well, to be fair, you can get them from any Planned Parenthood location. You can definitely get them from select hospitals. In some cases, you can buy them from certain pharmacies per the permission of your doctor. They may or may not have to order it so that you can get it as well. There are... Let's see, are there any disadvantages to using spermicide? It works best if you use it every single time. This much is true. And it does work with every other contraception that is available. As for side effects, nonazinol 9, an ingredient in spermicide, may irritate or it may irritate sensitive genital tissue if you use it several times a day, so don't do that. The irritation increases your risk for HIV and other STDs because it gives infections an easy pathway into your body. And for some people, they're allergic to spermicide too, so keep that in mind. If your vagina or your penis starts to feel sore or irritated after sex, one of you could be either sensitive to the spermicide or allergic to it. Therefore, you're going to have to switch brands, okay? And like I said before, it doesn't prevent STDs, and it can increase the risk of getting them if you're not careful. One last thing, it can be messy, okay? It can ooze out of the vaginal area and be quite messy, so be careful with that. And it may also taste a little funky. So if you're going for oral, spermicide's not what you want to be using at that given time. All right? All right, everybody. Let's go ahead and cover diaphragms real quick. That was the next thing on my list. Now we cover spermicide, condoms, and everything else of the sort. We only have, I do believe, 2 left that we're going to have to cover after this: the birth control sponge and cervical cap. And then we'll move into the lifestyle changes, okay? The diaphragm is a shallow, bendable cup that you put inside the vagina. It covers your cervix during sex to prevent pregnancy. It has an 88% effectiveness rate, and it costs up to $75, but it can be $0. A prescription is required, however, so the cost of it will depend on your insurance. And you have to put it on before sex every single time, okay? What is the diaphragm? A diaphragm is a form of birth control that is a shell cup, like a little saucer that is made of soft silicone, okay? You bend it in half and insert it inside the vaginal area to cover your cervix, okay? How does it prevent it? It basically creates a barrier that covers the cervix where the sperm enters to basically fertilize the egg, okay? It works well with spermicide, as I mentioned before. How do they work with spermicide? Basically, you add the spermicide to the diaphragm before putting it into your vagina. It makes it more effective. spermicide has chemicals that stop sperm from moving, so they can't get to the egg at all, okay? And the diaphragm keeps the spermicide in place near the cervix, so you don't have to worry about it oozing out, okay? It's pretty simple to use once you get the hang of it, and practice makes perfect. So even if you're not planning on having sex immediately, play with it a little bit, see if you figure out how to use it. Make sure every time that you use it, you wash your hands with soap and water, and you're clean inside, okay? And much like using tampons, like I mentioned before with the internal condom, you need to find a position that works well for you before you attempt to insert it, okay? After that, you separate the lips of your vulva with one of your hands and, pinch the rim of the diaphragm together to fold it in half and then insert it as far back and up inside as you can, okay? Tuck the edges of the diaphragm behind your pubic bone and make sure your cervix is definitely covered. Once you get a feel for where it needs to be and you've practiced with this a few times, it works well. In order to make it work effectively, though, you're going to have to use it up to 2 hours before you plan to have sex. Any longer and the spermicide won't work as well. Okay? Reapply this, and if the action starts more than 2 hours after you insert the diaphragm, you're going to have to reapply the spermicide before you have sex anyway. If you have sex again before taking it out, add more spermicide just to be on the safe side without removing the diaphragm. Always leave your diaphragm in place for at least 6 hours after the last time you've had sex, but don't leave it in more than 24 hours. If you have sex again, leave the diaphragm in, but put a new dose of spermicide in your vagina to make it more effective, okay? As to how to take care of the diaphragm, after you take it out, wash it with soap and warm water, let it air dry, don't use powder on your diaphragm, it can lead to infections for one. Store it in a clean place, away from extreme heat and direct sunlight, okay? Take a good look at the diaphragm every now and then, hold it up to the light and check to see if there's any holes, cracks, wrinkles, or weak spots, okay? You can also fill the cup of your diaphragm with water to test for leaks. If you spot any, you need to let your doctor know so they can get you a new one, okay? Or just use another type of birth control when planning to have sex in the first place. As far as buying them is concerned, keep in mind that diaphragms come in different sizes, so your doctor will have to fit one for you so that they can give you the prescription, okay? You can only buy them from a pharmacy, drugstore, or health center after you get the prescription from your doctor, okay? Spermicide can be used with your diaphragm as well. Can be basically bought over the counter, okay? And remember, it comes in gels, creams, and so on and so forth. Getting a diaphragm can cost anywhere between $0 to $250 if you don't have insurance, okay? That includes the cost of an exam, the fitting, plus the cost of the diaphragm itself. So that's the whole kit and caboodle. Spermicide can cost anywhere from $5 to $15 for a kit of that, so that's not really to worry about. The only thing with this is you need to make sure you have good insurance, otherwise it's going to be costing you a lot. And make sure you contact your nearest Planned Parenthood health center as well for any additional information. Finally, the disadvantages. Much like everything else, for it to work properly, you have to use it every single time and insert it the right way. It can help protect against STDs if used properly, but it doesn't prevent all of them, okay? And since some people have trouble inserting the diaphragm, it may take practice to get used to it comfortably, so that's one of the disadvantages. You have to use it up to 2 hours before you plan to have sex. You can't leave it in for more than 24 hours, okay? If you use spermicide a lot times during the day, you can irritate your vagina and increase your risk of getting HIV or STDs. So with that, you want to be sure not to use a diaphragm at all if you get a UTI, because your vagina will be irritated and cause other risks as well. And like I mentioned before, size does matter, because if it doesn't fit properly or it's not big enough, you run the risk of getting pregnant, or in some cases losing weight uncontrollably due to the hormones, your body acting weird, okay? And that's pretty much it for the diaphragm. everybody, and we're back. Now I'm going to talk about something that's pretty interesting. It's a little different from some of the others, but it's basically the same thing. You have to use it every time you plan to have sex. So it's no different than the other kinds of birth control that exist already. Okay? And that would be the birth control sponge. Yeah, you heard me, I'm not kidding. The birth control sponge, aka the contraception sponge, or the sponge for short, is a small round sponge made from soft, squishy plastic. Okay? You put it deep inside your vagina before sex. Pretty simple, cut and dry. It covers your cervix and, basically does the same thing that the spermicide does to help prevent pregnancy. It's not the same as the spermicide. You can still use it with it, but it does contain spermicide in it. Okay? It's the only brand of sponge. The only brand of sponge that can be sold in the United States is the Today sponge. So if you live outside the US, you'll have more options. Keep that in mind. How does it work? It works two ways. It fits snugly against your cervix, blocking the entrance to the uterus, so no sperm can get to your egg. The sponge also contains spermicide, like I said a second ago, which slows down sperm so it can't reach the egg. The sponge can actually be used by itself or with condoms, which is great. Using the sponge plus a condom gives you extra protection, and it covers you from STDs. Okay? Which is actually really good, all things considered. It has a 76 to 88% effectiveness rate. It costs up to $15 for 3 of them. Okay, so that works out well for you. You don't need a prescription to get it, but you have to use it every time you every time you have sex. It's the only way it's going to be effective every single time you use it. And much like every birth control method, the sponge is most effective when you use it correctly the first time you use it, every time you use it. If women who have never given birth always use a sponge perfectly every single time, it's about a 91% effectiveness rate. That means every 9 out of 100 people, which sounds better than a 76 to 88% effectiveness rate. If you have given birth before, using the sponge perfectly will only give you about an 80% effectiveness rate. So if you've had kids before, but you don't plan to have any more later, it's going to be a lot lower, and you're still going to have a risk of doing it, which means you have a 20 out of 100% chance you'll still get pregnant with this method. So if you're seeking not to get pregnant again, I would go for a different route altogether. Okay? Basically, how the sponge is more effective: using the sponge correctly every single time you have sex, or intercourse for that matter. It is super important that you use it on the first step. The best way to increase your pregnancy prevention powers is to use the sponge along with another birth control method, like I mentioned before. Your partner can pull out before ejaculating, which helps keep sperm out of the vagina area also. The sponge plus a condom gives you the extra protection you need, plus STD protection. The sponge does not, however, protect you against STDs, so keep this in mind, okay? And that's because the spermicide in there contains that chemical I mentioned before that can still irritate your vagina and make it easier for STDs to enter your body, okay? The good news is, like I said before, adding condoms to the mix does help, okay? Using birth control correctly every single time you use it is important. In order to use the sponge, you wash your hands with soap and water first. Touch the sponge, take the sponge out of the wrapper, wet it with some clean water, gently squeeze the sponge until it's sudsy, most likely, you know what I mean. It needs to be totally wet though, and activate all the spermicide that's in it. Don't squeeze it dry. The sponge should be wet and foamy when you insert it. That's perfectly normal, as weird as it's going to feel. With the indented side of the sponge facing up, fold the sides upward away from the fabric loop on the bottom of it until it's long and narrow. And when you insert the sponge, the indented side should face the front side of your body, and the fabric loop side should face the back side of your body. Again, much like the other ones, you have to get into a comfortable position so that you can put it on, much like you put on a tampon as well. Okay? When can you put the sponge in? You can put it in immediately, now, later, 24 hours before you have sex. Doesn't matter. It starts working as soon as you activate the spermicide in it with water. Okay? As long as it's inserted as well. One thing I want to point out though, once the sponge is in, you can have sex as many times as you want in the next 24 hours without having to replace it. Okay? Always leave the sponge in place for at least 6 hours after sex, though, but don't leave the sponge in your vagina for more than 30 hours total, so 24 hours, take it out. Alright? But you have to leave it in at least 6 hours afterwards. How do you take it out? Slide your finger inside the vaginal area and hook it around the fabric loop on the bottom of the sponge, then slowly, gently glide it out. Don't just yank it out, because you can actually irritate the skin that's inside there. Once it's out, how do I put this? Toss the sponge into the trash. Do not flush it down the toilet. The sponges are not reusable. Okay? And again, much like everything else, you don't need a prescription to buy it. Okay? You can buy them over the counter. You can buy them at Planned Parenthood centers. Okay? As for the disadvantages, well, let's see here. They don't protect against STDs. They have to be used with another form of birth control for ultimate performance, depending on the woman's current state. And if you want to protect against STDs, you want to use them with condoms. Okay? They can only stay in your body for a total of 30 hours, but they have to stay in there 6 hours after you've had sex, assuming that you've done it multiple times in the same day. And please note that if you're allergic to certain birth control medicines, make sure it's not the one that has the Nonoxol 9 in it, because if that's the one you're allergic to, you will not be able to use the sponge. Okay? I know I went through that a bit fast, but that's basically the synopsis of the birth control sponge. It's basically the same as the diaphragm. The only difference is you don't have to take it out. But you do it, like, you don't have to take it out every time you plan to have sex, just every day you plan to do it. You wear it, okay? And much like the diaphragm, you don't have to put it in up to 2 hours before. All right. Of the methods that are left to cover for the use every single time methods is the cervical cap. That's all I got left to talk about for this episode. The cervical cap is a little cup made from soft silicone. It's shaped like, well, a sailor's hat. You put it deep inside your vagina to cover your cervix. It's pretty much simple, all things considered. The type of cervical cap that you get in the US is called fem cap. Okay, it has a 71 to 86% effectiveness rate. It costs up to $90, but can cost $0. It does require a prescription, though, to get, because size, much like the diaphragm, has to be adjusted to, each woman that uses it. And you have to use it every time you have sex. And it works pretty much the same way as the diaphragm, as it does prevent sperm from reaching, the egg. That's pretty much how they work. The only difference is that the cervical caps are smaller than the diaphragms, and the shape is a little different. Diaphragms are shaped like a disc, and, cervical caps are shaped like a sailor hat. They both work with spermicide and cover your cervix to prevent pregnancy. You can leave a cervical cap in longer than a diaphragm, up to 2 days more, but that's about it. But diaphragms are slightly more effective at preventing pregnancy in comparison, so you'll still have to see your doctor for whichever one is better. And as for its effectiveness rate, like I said before, it has an 86% effectiveness rate, which means that out of 100 people who use the cap, 14 of them will get pregnant every time they use it. Every year. For those who've already given birth, that drops to a 71% chance, so 29 out of 100. And like all birth control methods, the cervical cap is most effective when used correctly before sex every time you have it, and it can be used with other kinds. If this one's not compatible with you, then you need to check out one of the more permanent ones that can be undone, like the IUD or implants, because it's not permanent, but they're there and you don't have to do anything for them, okay? To make it more effective, you have to use it every time you have sex. Use spermicide with the cap, and add more spermicide if you plan to have sex again without taking it out. And much like the diaphragms, you can leave it in there up to 24 hours as well. At a time before having to take it out and clean it, of course. You put it in before you have sex, ideally before you feel aroused or any other kind of emotion. If you're not sure, still use it with condoms, okay? Cervical caps also don't protect against STDs, so you're still going to have to use a condom as well. The basic synopsis of this is wash your hands before you use it. Put 1 1/4 teaspoon of spermicide in the cup and spread a thin layer on the flat brim, on the flat part of the brim as well. And then 1/2 teaspoon of spermicide in the groove between the brim and the dome. Spread it in a thin layer on the brim of the cap as well. Get comfortable in a certain position, same thing like with the last couple of birth control methods I mentioned before, and well, insert it. You can always leave your cervical cap in place for at least 6 hours after you've had sex, and don't leave it in there for more than 2 days, which is a 48-hour period, okay? Same thing like with before, when you take it out, be very careful with it, don't just yank it out. As you take care of it, you wash it with soap and water, warm water, of course. Let it air dry. Don't use powder, and don't store it in extremely hot or cold places. Okay? If there's any holes or weak spots, contact your doctor so you can get a new one. Okay? Where can you buy these? Cervical caps aren't one size fits all. Like I mentioned before, you have to be measured. Small for people who have never been pregnant before. Medium for those who've had an abortion, miscarriage, or a cesarean delivery. Or C-section, if you will. Large for people who've already given birth vaginally and haven't received a C-section. Use the spermicide with the cap in order for it to work properly. You don't need a prescription to get spermicide. I've mentioned before, okay? Sharing is caring, but do not share your cervical caps. I can't believe I have to mention that in the first place. All right, they can cost anywhere between $0 to $275 depending on your insurance. And you can get them from Planned Parenthood centers as well. As for its disadvantages, well, they work correctly if you use them every time you use them. Use them correctly every time you plan to have sex. How do I put this? They work well with condoms if you're not quite sure, or female condoms. If you can't use this implant, just go to the IUDs or the birth control implant, of course. Some people may have trouble inserting the cervical cap. You're going to need practice. At first, it's going to feel a little bit rough, but you'll get used to that. You have to leave them in 6 hours after you've had sex, and you can't have them in there for more than 2 days. So, without having to take it out and cleaning it. And it doesn't protect you against HIV or STDs, so please keep that in mind. Oh, and size does matter. So, you can't just have one that fits everybody or share it with other people. Definitely don't do that, as it's not safe or sanitary. All right, well, that pretty much covers all of the regular birth control methods that are used every single time. Between condoms and spermicide, we covered everything. The condom, the internal condom, the diaphragm, birth control sponge, cervical cap, and the spermicide are all methods that you have to use every single time. In the previous 2 episodes, or 3 for that matter, we covered the low maintenance ones that are already set and done, the birth control implant and the IUDs. And then we covered use on schedule methods, which would be the birth control shot, the vaginal ring, birth control patch, and the pill. All that's left to cover in our next 1 or 2 episodes, depending on how much information I have to cover on them, are the lifestyle change methods for birth control and the more permanent ones. So again, this has been Food for Thought, Thoughts If It Were You. My name is Gentrics. I thank you guys for sticking around for this, but I feel this is a very important topic, and it shouldn't be gone about unnoticed. Both male and females should know about this. So, thank you guys for listening. I thank you guys for sticking around. And again, if you have any comments or concerns, hit me up on that anchor.fm/Gentrics site. For support, if you want to support me, or send me messages on my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Snapchat. Again, my handle is the same as it has always been on every single one of them, is Gentrics. And that's it. I'll see you guys later. Be blessed.